Greetings folks, Iolair here, and welcome to another World of Warships Division replay. For those of you new to this channel's format of Division replays, we feature a match while transitioning between the perspectives of a Division's members at key points in the game. If you want to see other Division replays, I've left a link to a playlist of such videos from this channel in the description below, and I do update that playlist as we add other Division replays to the channel. Today's match features Jimijaz and myself both sailing the premium Tier 5 Italian battleship, the Giulio Cesare. We were progressing on the missions pertaining to the Rogue Wave event, and since we both had only the battleship free XP portion of the third phase to complete, we elected to play a tier and set of ships where we felt we could have the most influence. We are in a Tier 6 standard battle on New Dawn. There is one aircraft carrier per team, and Jimijaz and I are oddly the only battleships on our team, so we're going to split up initially to support separate flanks. And notably on our team is ASHLEY, the World of Warships community contributor in the Krasny Krim. Both of our ship builds are very similar, having identical upgrades and a common set of core skills. My commander has a few more skill points, and I take one of the additional skills I take is Expert Loader, which will definitely be useful in this match given the number of destroyers in game. This is going to be a close match, but it won't look that way for quite a while, as we're going to fall quite seriously behind before we start catching up again. And thanks to a longtime viewer, One-Eyed Potato, who was actually the interviewee in the last interview of this channel, he recommended that I include the player's name in the overlay in the left-hand corner of the screen, in addition to the ship name. So thanks to that suggestion, which is definitely useful here since we're both in the same ship. We started the replay from Jimijaz's perspective on the east flank. We've transitioned to my perspective here on the west flank. I'm going to open up here with a pretty disappointing salvo. I think one bounce on this Furitaka. That Furitaka is going to actually be quite a challenge for me to get out of the game. It's probably going to be a reflection of either my crappy aiming or RNG, or to some extent the tankiness of the Furitaka at this tier. We do have a couple of allied destroyers that are helping us to screen, and they've done a pretty good job here roughing up this opposing Kamikaze R initially in the game. And in fact, that Kamikaze R is going to basically completely retreat, and we won't see him for quite a while, or at least Jim and I won't. He's taken quite a thrashing. We do give up first blood to the opposing team. We lose our Dallas, that I think that was on the east flank, and so we've already are behind. And interestingly, both of the opposing battleships are on this flank with me on the west side. But I am going to have some very good support from the two allied destroyers, the T-61 and the Shinonome, to help get those battleships out of the way. In fact, this opposing New York is now going to take a bunch of torpedoes and basically be reduced to almost no hit points very quickly. And between this slightly disappointing salvo, as well as some gunfire from the T-61, we do take out the New York. So the opposing team is dealing with one, or working with one battleship at this point, which is the Giulio Cesare. Here's that Furitaka again that's moving up the west side. I'm going to swing around and get my guns on the other side and try to support my destroyers from the Furitaka. Switch over to Jimijaz's perspective on the east flank. You can see ASHLEY in the Krasny Krim is in the southeast corner of the map. And she's, I think, pulling back probably because she doesn't want to be the focus of what is the strong flank for the opposing team, and rightfully so. The Krasny Krim has a pretty terrible reputation. It is very squishy. It's basically a Svetlana, Tier 5 Svetlana, which is actually a very good cruiser at Tier 4, but at Tier 5 she struggles quite a bit. But Jim is basically going to be the focus of the opposing team on this flank, because he's going to be one of the very few ships that they can actually see and shoot at this point. So Jim is going to end up retreating. He did have HE loaded there. I think he was anticipating a destroyer. We've come back over to my perspective on the west flank. Again, here is this Furitaka, who narrowly misses some torpedoes from our allied Shinonome. I'm going to get a salvo out here, which is going to be okay, get about 5,000 damage, not anything to write home about. Again, the Furutaka is actually a quite durable ship at this tier. Flamu, among other community contributors, have done a number of reviews of the Furutaka. She has 25 millimeter plating over a significant portion of the ship, which makes her much tankier in many ways for a tier 5 cruiser than most of her peers. And so she's able to weather a fair number of salvos better than like I said, some of her peers. I got a very disappointing salvo there with only 3 shells making contact, 1 shatter, 1 bounce, and 1 overpen. So again, either terrible aiming or RNG, and I think also to some extent the tankiness of the Furutaka has helped here. We are now behind by 3 ships, and it's just me here now on the west flank, having to tactically retreat here. I am aiming for the bow here. I want to try to overmatch the bow, which I can do with these 330 millimeter guns. Again, a bounce and 1 overpen, so kind of disappointing salvo. I should note here that I had heard a rumor, I think in the last couple of days, some people are claiming that ever since the attempt to move the Giulio Cesare to tier 6 essentially failed, or that effort had failed, that Wargaming has sort of secretly nerfed the accuracy of the Giulio Cesare. I can't attest to that. I still have good games with her. I don't play her enough to say conclusively whether that's the case. But that certainly seems to be an opinion of a number of people. I don't know if it's just some sort of confirmation bias or something to claim that that's happened, but I haven't seen that her accuracy has necessarily declined. If somebody wants to comment and chat with some real facts and figures to confirm this or deny it, that would be very useful. I did, in that previous salvo on the Furutaka, I did get a decent salvo, got her down to a little bit lower, and finally I actually aimed for the turrets and managed to get some sort of punch through either at the barbette or somewhere and hit the citadel, and able to take the Furutaka down finally. Switch over to Jimijaz's perspective back on the east flank. Again, our team has just now lost another ship, the Alba. We're working with what looks like, and now we've lost another ship, the T-61. So we're now working with a 4-ship deficit, basically a 2-on-1 situation. We have an allied Nuremberg, which is kind of out front. He's probably going to be the focus on the east flank now, and we have a Mutsuki. So our Nuremberg isn't going to last too much longer. In fact, he's going to end up taking some torpedoes here not too long and be taken out of the game. Do have an opposing Graf Spee, which Jim is trying to work on, and you can see my position over on the east side of our cap. I'm actually going to get a salvo on that Graf Spee and get him down to, I think, like 16 hit points with a Citadel hit, and then Jim will finish him off relatively soon. The Nuremberg here is, there he takes the torpedoes, so it's now, we have 3 ships, and Jim is going to fire here, but you see the shells that just landed on the Graf Spee. That was from myself. Did get a Citadel, like I said, and Jim gets a final overpen to finish off the Graf Spee. So we are still working with a 4-ship deficit. We have a 7-3 situation, Jim, myself, and our Mutsuki. Now, our Mutsuki is overextended. He should be retreating as well. He generally should have very good concealment, but he does have 2 opposing destroyers that could potentially flush him out. So he really is overextended at this point, and we will lose him relatively soon. We've switched to my perspective as the opposing hill is it has in fact just entered our cap, and I'm turning around to go and hopefully I find the hill and take him out, and certainly defend the cap. The opposing carrier is dropping me here. I am going to take a torpedo. I was worried when he was dropping me that I would take flooding and feel compelled to have to use damage control and then be subject to more flooding if I took a torpedo from the hill. Fortunately, there was no flooding from the carrier. I do get a reset on the hill. I'm going to switch here to HE, obviously, as I'm going to drive in here and try to get the hill out of the cap and take him down. Switch back to Jim's perspective. He's gotten himself hung up a little bit on the rocks here. Have the opposing Farragut that's closing in. Jim's going to get some shells in on this Farragut. The Farragut starts dropping smoke here, and then myself, since I wasn't able to see the hill at the time, I fire on the Farragut. There you can see the shells from me coming in. I made a very poorly placed shot, thinking the Farragut would slow to stay in his smoke, which he didn't. and I ended up undershooting him and missing him completely. In fact, I probably only needed to get one shell on him to finish him off and missed that opportunity. Jim, however, is going to send out a blind set of shells here. He is going to get an overpen and finish off the Farragut. So we're now down to a 5-on-2 situation. And as I mentioned earlier, we did lose our Mutsuki. First shots out here on the hill miss. I under anticipated his turn. Next shell here, I'm going to be a little more patient. I need to make sure that I get him down so that he doesn't get me in a torpedo drive-by, which he wasn't able to do. And now we're down to a 4-on-2 situation, and our cap has been successfully defended. Our challenge here is that Jim and I, being two battleships up against a very good torpedo destroyer, the Kamikaze, which was last seen at Delta 10, is going to be able to keep us spotted, as well as the opposing carrier with his planes in the air. Jim and I are talking on comms at this point and saying, okay, Jim is actually the more damaged of the two of us. So what I tell Jim to do is I will stay at our cap to defend anything that attempts to threaten the cap. And Jim should go to in fact, Jim will go to the opposing team's cap to at least contest it and try to hopefully find the carrier, which he will end up doing, but be able to put some pressure on the opposing team to try to improve our chances of winning here. So this opposing Omaha here is actually going to be quite crafty. Jim and I are going to send out several salvos. In fact, you can see some shells over there that I've just sent in on the Omaha. Going to miss. He's going to be quite good at sort of controlling his speed and his direction to throw off some of these shells that we fire in on him. Jim gets one pen out of the 10. Again, I don't know if somebody who thinks that the Giulio Cesare has been nerfed is going to be some sort of confirmation that the accuracy has been damaged. I thought that, or has been nerfed. I think the accuracy is still pretty good. I think that hitting a bow on target like that at 14 clicks can be fairly challenging. Do see the opposing Leander as he's dropping back into smoke. Get a few shells on him. Here's the Omaha again. And I think with this salvo, Jim does finally get a really solid hit on him. You can see some more shells from me. Looks like I just get one overpen. But I think with this salvo, Jim actually gets a really good salvo on him and gets a Citadel and takes out most of his remaining health. There I get a couple more. Yes, in fact, there is the Citadel. And we're going to transition to my perspective here right now, actually, as I'm going to get the final shells in on this Omaha and finish him off. So that will, once we have this ship down, that will put us in a 3-on-2 situation. But again, we're quite far away from being able to win this. Again, my job here is going to be defending the flank. I'm keeping AP loaded here in anticipation of seeing the Leander, but I will end up switching to HE in the not too distant future, as I know that I'm going to have to defend against the Kamikaze. You just saw some indication of torpedoes. Obviously, the Kamikaze is sort of to my north or northeast and is sending torpedoes from concealment, and I'm trying to make sure that I get some distance on him by sailing directly south, as well as constantly changing my speed and direction. Do see the Leander very briefly as he's moving south to help intercept Jim, as Jim is heading to our cap. I suspect he is rightfully anticipating that's what Jim's plan is. Like I said, we did very briefly see the Leander. Jim is going to just take kind of a blind shot here on some hopes that maybe he can get some damage in on the Leander, but these shells are going to miss. They're not going to make any connections. So Jim's other hope is that, or our other hope, not just Jim's, is that we are going to see the opposing carrier. You can see that he was last detected at the India 3 or India 4. Yeah, I think that's the India 3 quadrant. And it turns out that he is still there. We will find out. But he had all the chance in the world to be able to move. This opposing Leander is doing a really good job firing from concealment when he gets the chance. He knows that he can be one shot by Jim, and so he has to be very careful about how and when he engages Jim in the Cesare. We are going to spot him very briefly. There he is again. Jim's going to get over, but then he's going to disappear again behind the island. Jim's going to get some shells out. Most of them, I think, hit the island. In fact, I think the Leander turns in and Jim's shells miss completely. I'm going to switch to my perspective as I am exiting our cap, and then the opposing kamikaze, who has been trailing me, immediately enters the cap. And I think at this point I'm going to switch to HE. Now, the turn I'm making here, yeah, you can see I'm switching. And you can also see the benefit of having the expert loader here. It's only going to take me 13 seconds to switch over ammo types. I'm making a fairly dangerous turn here because initially I was obviously sailing likely directly away from the kamikaze, so it would have been much more difficult for him to get torpedoes on me. But since I turned perpendicular to his line of torpedoes, that could be a risk if I take some. I do spot the kamikaze and take him out. He simply got too close. He didn't have any reason to be detected. He had all the advantage in the world to be able to take me out with some better positioning, but as fortune would have it, I am able to detect and take out the kamikaze, and so now we have a 2-on-2 situation. Jim is in the cap, and the opposing carrier is simply not moving. And this initial salvo is going to get a citadel and a bunch more damage to carve out what looks like almost 2/3 of his health in one salvo. Just needs to wait for the next salvo. Jim's going to stay in the cap here. Doesn't matter too much if he gets torpedoed. The torpedoes from the carriers, very low alpha. Jim does not have any more heals, but he does have a repair party ready. I'm sorry, a damage control ready, but as luck would have it, the torpedoes do not arm. Jim takes no damage, and he is able to finish off the carrier, earns high caliber, and now our team has taken the lead. And Jim is not in torpedo range of the Leander. The Leander is knows that he's in the disadvantage now. And our team has the upper hand. So Jim is going to turn here, get his guns on the Leander, and get a salvo out. But you can see some comments in chat being shared by the opposing team that they are complimenting us on our play here. Jim did do a terrific job, and he does get a dove strike to seal off the game and rightfully earn top XP for our team. So Jim and I each had 4 kills. Jim rightfully had a lot more XP here. He shot down quite a few more planes, did over 123,000 in damage, high caliber, dreadnought, Confederate, fireproof, got a devastating strike, and like I said, definitely was the star of the show here. And I don't mind playing second fiddle here to such a fine, distinguished player like Jimijaz. So I hope you enjoyed the replay and the commentary. Please do leave your comments below. And as always, we hope to see you out there, and we wish you happy sailing.